The sound that echoed through the crystal-draped dining room of the Carlyle wasn't just a glass shattering, it was the sound of a life breaking. "You pathetic, filthy, little nothing," a woman's voice, dripping with venom and diamonds, hissed. A young waitress, soaked in 5,000 a bottle wine, stood frozen as the billionaire's wife wiped her designer shoe on the young woman's apron. The entire restaurant watched, silent and horrified. They thought they were witnessing the end of a girl's career. They had no idea they were watching the beginning of a billionaire's downfall. What happened next shocked everyone. The Tuesday night shift at the Carlyle was, by design, an exercise in understated opulence. The air itself seemed to have a thread count, woven with the scent of white gardenias and old money. The lighting was low, forgiving, and golden, designed to make the powerful patrons look even more so. In this hushed sanctuary of Manhattan's elite, Anna Bishop was just another cog in the immaculate machine. Her black and white uniform was spotless, her dark hair pulled into a severe regulation bun. Her feet, however, throbbed inside her sensible black shoes, a dull ache that had become her constant companion for the past 6 months. Anna was good at her job. She was invisible when she needed to be, refilling a water glass without a sound, and present when required, capable of reciting the esoteric ingredients of the Orsan et Truffe without blinking. Her colleague, Leo, a wiry, kind-eyed man who'd been working this floor for a decade, winked at her as she passed the service station. "Table 7 is tense," he murmured, polishing a spoon as if it held state secrets. "The Davenports. Good luck." Anna knew the name. Everyone did. Gregory Davenport was a titan of brutalist corporate takeovers. His wife, Genevieve, was a titan of social malice, famous for her charity balls and her even more famous public feuds. They were new money, desperately trying to calcify into old money, and they used their wealth like a weapon. Anna approached the table with a practiced, neutral smile. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Davenport. May I offer you an aperitif?" Gregory didn't look up from his phone, his face a mask of bored entitlement. Genevieve, however, scanned Anna from head to toe. Her eyes, the color of icy gin, lingered on Anna's hands. "Are your cuticles real?" Genevieve asked, her voice a low, bored drawl. Anna was momentarily stunned. I beg your pardon, ma'am. Your cuticles," Genevieve repeated, pointing with a long, blood-red fingernail. "They're ragged. It's disgusting. Doesn't the Carlyle have standards anymore? And you have a stray hair." She flicked her wrist, a cascade of diamond bracelets catching the light. "I'll have a Vesper, very cold, very dry, and tell the bartender if I taste even a hint of vermouth, I'll send it back." "Of course, ma'am." Anna maintained her smile, a thin, brittle thing. "And for you, sir," Gregory grunted, "the 98 Petro, a bottle, and don't spill it." The order sent a small shock through Anna. The 98 Petrus was listed at 5,200. It was a show wine, ordered not to be enjoyed, but to be seen. The tension mounted through the appetizer course. Genevieve sent back her chilled cucumber soup for being too green. Gregory took a business call at the table, his voice a sharp, barking counterpoint to the quiet clink of silver. Then came the wine. Anna, following procedure, presented the bottle. Gregory waved her on impatiently. She meticulously uncorked it, the pop of the cork swallowed by the room's plush carpets. She poured the small tasting portion. Gregory swirled it, sniffed, and nodded, already turning back to his phone. Anna moved to Genevieve's side. The angle was awkward. Genevieve had her chair angled away from the table, deep in conversation with a passing socialite. "Ma'am, your wine," Anna said softly. Genevieve turned, her arm swinging wide, her Hermes Birkin bag connecting squarely with Anna's wrist. It was a nightmare in slow motion. The dark, ruby-red liquid, thousands of dollars, decades of history, arced through the air. It missed the glass entirely. It hit Genevieve Davenport's pristine, white, $20,000 silk Chanel jacket. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. All conversation stopped. Genevieve looked down at the dark, spreading stain. She looked at the dripping bottle in Anna's hand. She looked at Anna's horrified face. A slow, reptilian smile spread across her lips. "Oh, you bitch," Genevieve whispered. Then she began to scream. The scream was not one of fright. It was a shriek of calculated rage. It sliced through the polite hum of the dining room, sharp and jagged, turning every head. Look at what this clumsy, incompetent idiot did." Genevieve shot to her feet, knocking her chair over in a crash of performative distress. The white jacket was, indeed, ruined. The red wine looked like a blood stain. "Ma'am, I am so deeply sorry, Anna began, her training kicking in. "Blot, don't rub. Offer assistance. Apologize." "Sorry?" Genevieve's voice dropped to a hiss that carried further than the scream. "Sorry. This jacket is couture, you stupid girl. It's worth more than your entire pathetic life. You can't afford to be sorry." Gregory Davenport finally looked up from his phone, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. He wasn't angry at the spill. He was annoyed by the scene. "Genevieve, calm down. It's just a jacket." "It's not just a jacket, Gregory. It's the principle." She rounded on Anna, her face a mask of fury. "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Anna stood frozen, the heavy bottle still in her hand. "It was an accident, Mrs. Davenport. Your bag. It hit my hand." "Liar!" Genevieve shrieked. "She's calling me a liar. I was sitting here, minding my own business, and this waitress assaults me. She did it on purpose. She was jealous. Look at her with her ugly little face." The restaurant manager, Mr. Shaw, came scurrying over, his face pale and slick with sweat. He was a man built of apologies, with a weak chin and darting eyes. "Mrs. Davenport, Mr. Davenport, my deepest apologies. What seems to be the trouble?" "The trouble, Mr. Shaw," Genevieve spat, "is that you employ trash. This thing just destroyed my jacket and implied I was lying. I want her fired, not tomorrow, not in an hour, now. I want to see her walk out that door. Mrs. Davenport, I assure you, we will," Mr. Shaw began, wringing his hands. "Now, or I will call Martin Bishop himself and have you fired. Do you think he'd prefer your employment or my husband's $5 million a year account?" This was the threat that landed. Mr. Shaw's spine, already jelly, dissolved completely. He turned to Anna, his face a picture of frantic, cowardly desperation. "Anna, what did you do? Apologize to Mrs. Davenport." "I did apologize, Mr. Shaw, but That's not good enough," Genevieve interrupted. "I don't want her apology. I want her humiliation." She stepped closer to Anna, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "You know, honey, there are jobs for people like you. People with no breeding, no grace. You could scrub toilets. You could work in a sewer. But you don't belong here. You don't belong in the same room as me." She then did something that stunned the entire room into breathless silence. Genevieve picked up her own glass of ice water, and with a look of utter contempt, flicked her wrist. The icy water splashed across Anna's face and chest, soaking the front of her uniform, the cold so sharp it made Anna gasp. "There," Genevieve said, setting the glass down with a click. "Now you're as ugly on the outside as you are on the inside. Get her out of my sight, Shaw. I want her gone." Leo, who had been watching from the service station, took a half-step forward, his face white with rage. "Mr. Shaw, that's not—" You! Shaw barked, rounding on Leo, grateful for a new target. Back to your station. One more word, and you're fired too. Leo froze. The economic reality of his own family, a wife, a sick kid, slamming into his principles. He met Anna's eyes with a look of profound shame and helplessness, then retreated. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Anna stood there, dripping with ice water and $5,000 wine, her professional mask finally cracking. A single tear of pure, unadulterated rage and humiliation traced a path through the water on her cheek. Mr. Shaw grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in. You're fired, Bishop. Give me your apron. You are to leave. Immediately. Mr. Shaw, please. No, you will not. Mr. Shaw me. You are a disgrace to this establishment. Get out. He didn't just fire her. He did as Genevieve commanded. He made her untie her soiled apron in the middle of the dining room. He made her walk, not through the staff exit in the back, but directly through the main dining room and out the grand lobby under the stunned, pitying and contemptuous gazes of New York's wealthiest citizens. As she passed their table, a pariah in her own workplace, Gregory Davenport spoke for the first time. He didn't look at her. He was studying his wine glass, which Anna had managed to fill before the disaster. She has weak hands, he said to no one in particular. I can't stand weakness. Genevieve smirked, dabbing at her unstained sleeve with a napkin. Send the cleaning bill for the jacket to the hotel, Mr. Shaw, and my dry cleaning. Anna said nothing. She didn't look back. She just walked, each step an agony, her back straight, her head high, while inside, a cold, hard, and unfamiliar, new resolve began to form, freezing the humiliation into something else entirely. Something dangerous. The lobby of the Carlyle was a grand, theatrical space, designed to make arrivals feel momentous and departures reluctant. For Anna, it was a gauntlet. Her damp uniform clung to her, the wine stain a garish badge of shame. The concierge, a man who had complimented her on her professionalism just that morning, now pointedly avoided her gaze, suddenly fascinated by his computer monitor. The bellhops, usually chatty, fell silent as she passed. She pushed through the heavy, gilded revolving doors, and the cool November air of Manhattan hit her like a slap. It was real. She was on the street, fired, humiliated, drenched. She walked a full block, past the glowing windows of Madison Avenue boutiques, before she allowed herself to stop. She leaned against the cold stone of a bank, the adrenaline ebbing, leaving behind a bone-deep chill and a simmering, volcanic fury. She wasn't furious about the job. The job had been a means to an end, a temporary, humbling, and often exhausting chapter. She wasn't even, in the grand scheme of things, furious about the $20,000 jacket she knew her father would have to pay for. She was furious at the injustice. She was furious at Mr. Shaw, a man who was supposed to protect his staff, who had instead sacrificed her to appease a monster. She was furious at Gregory Davenport for his casual, dismissive cruelty, and she was incandescently, blindingly furious at Genevieve, a woman who wielded her privilege like a cudgel, finding joy in the simple act of crushing someone she perceived as lesser. She saw Leo's face in her mind, his helplessness, his shame. How many times had he and the others had to swallow that same poison? How many small, daily humiliations had they endured from people like the Davenports, all while their manager looked the other way? This was not just an incident. It was a symptom. A sickness. A yellow cab slowed as it approached, the driver seeing a lone, disheveled woman. Anna waved him on. She wasn't going home. She reached into the pocket of her sensible black trousers, past the cheap notepad and the single pen, and pulled out a phone. It wasn't the burner flip phone she used for her waitress life. It was a sleek, understated, custom-built smartphone with encrypted security. She swiped her thumb, her contacts list appearing. It contained only 3 numbers. She pressed 1. It rang twice. A deep, familiar voice answered, sharp and alert despite the hour. "Anna, are you all right? You're not supposed to call on this line." "I'm fine, Dad," Anna said, her voice shaking, not from cold or fear, but from contained rage. "But we have a problem." "What kind of problem? Is someone hurt?" "We have a problem at the New York flagship, Dad. A big one." There was a pause on the other end. The voice of Martin Bishop, founder, CEO, and sole owner of the multi-billion-dollar Bishop Hotel Group, softened. "Tell me everything. Were you compromised? Did they find out who you are?" "No," Anna said, a bitter laugh escaping her. "That's the problem. They didn't. They treated me exactly how they thought a waitress deserved to be treated." For the next 10 minutes, standing on the corner of Madison and 77th, Anna recounted the entire evening. She left nothing out. Genevieve's comments about her cuticles, the $200 a bottle of wine, the deliberate accident, the screaming, the ice water, the public firing, Mr. Shaw's cowardice, Leo's helplessness, and Gregory Davenport's final, cutting remark. "She has weak hands." When she finished, the silence on the other end of the line was heavy. Martin Bishop was not a man given to loud displays of emotion. He was a quiet, ruthless, and brilliant businessman who had built an empire from a single, run-down motel in Arizona. He was also a widower who had raised a daughter to be his equal, not his princess. This whole undercover venture had been Anna's idea. When she graduated from Cornell's hospitality program, she'd refused the executive-level C-suite job he'd offered. "I can't run a company I don't understand, Dad," she'd argued. "I can't lead people I've never walked with. I want to start at the bottom. No special treatment. Real name, real job, real paycheck. I want to see what our company is really like, from the ground up." He had reluctantly agreed, terrified for her but prouder than he'd ever been. For 6 months, Anna Bishop, heiress to a $10 billion hotel fortune, had been scrubbing toilets, changing sheets, and for the last 2 months, waiting tables at their flagship property. "Martin," he finally said, his voice dangerously calm. "Is that his name? Gregory Davenport?" "Yes. Gregory and Genevieve Davenport. He's the head of Davenport Capital." "I know who he is," Martin said, his voice turning to ice. "He's been trying to get a meeting with me for a month. He's been sniffing around, trying to float a buyout offer. He thinks I'm old, and my only heir is a flighty, unserious girl." A terrible, dawning comprehension settled over Anna. "Dad, what if this wasn't random?" "What do you mean?" "The Davenports, they were performative." Genevieve was looking for a fight from the second she sat down. "Gregory, he was just watching." "What if they were mystery shoppers?" "No," Martin said. "We hire a firm for that. They're professionals." "Not that kind, Dad," Anna pressed, the pieces clicking into place. "What if Davenport is trying to manufacture a weakness? What if he's trying to gather evidence that the Carlyle is poorly managed, that our staff is substandard, that our security is lax? What if he's trying to create incidents to drive down your valuation before he makes his offer?" Another long, cold silence. "My God," Martin breathed. "It's diabolical, and he used his wife as the wrecking ball." "I think so," Anna said. "And Mr. Shaw, he played right into their hands. He fired me on the spot, without an investigation, without a single question. He proved their entire point. He showed them that our management is weak and caves to pressure. He showed them weakness, Martin agreed, echoing Gregory Davenport's own words. Anna, what do you want to do? Anna looked up at the hotel, its lights glowing like a warm, welcoming beacon. A beacon that, tonight, had been a lie. I don't want to be a waitress anymore, Dad, she said, her voice devoid of its earlier tremble. I'm done. I've seen enough. I want you to call an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. A board meeting? Anna, we are the board. It's just you and me. No, Anna said, a new steely authority in her voice. Not that kind of meeting. Call in the regional VPs. Call in the head of legal. Call in Mr. Shaw. And Dad? Yes? Call Gregory Davenport. Tell him you're finally ready to discuss his generous offer. Tell him to be in the main boardroom at 10 a.m. sharp. And tell him to bring his wife. The Bishop Hotel Group's corporate headquarters was a sleek, glass and steel tower in Midtown, a world away from the old-world grandeur of the Carlyle. The main boardroom on the 50th floor was a testament to Martin Bishop's power. A single 30-foot slab of polished granite served as the table, and one entire wall was a sheet of glass overlooking Central Park. At 9:45 a.m., the room was already filling. The regional vice presidents, stern, impeccably dressed men and women, flew in from London, Dubai, and Hong Kong on the company jet. They filed in, their faces etched with confusion and concern. An emergency, all-hands-on-deck meeting like this, called with less than 12 hours' notice, usually meant one of two things: a catastrophic financial disaster or a death in the family. They took their seats, whispering amongst themselves, their folders untouched. At 9:50 a.m., Mr. Shaw arrived. He was a wreck. He had clearly been up all night, his suit rumpled, his face a pasty grey. He had been summoned by Martin Bishop's personal assistant at 4 a.m., an experience he would later compare to being served a warrant by a god. He clutched his briefcase, his knuckles white, and took the seat at the far end of the table, as far from Martin's empty chair as possible. At 9:58 a.m., the elevators chimed, and Gregory and Genevieve Davenport were escorted in. They were the picture of a power couple. Gregory, in a razor-sharp charcoal suit, radiated confidence. This was his arena. This was a deal. He was a shark, and he smelled blood in the water. He'd been trying to get this meeting for months. The old man must be desperate. Genevieve was equally resplendent in a royal blue dress that screamed business, but whispered wealth. She looked around the boardroom with a proprietary air, as if already measuring for new curtains. She spotted Mr. Shaw cowering at the end of the table and gave him a tiny, dismissive smirk. He was a loose end, a tool that had served its purpose. "Gregory, Genevieve, so glad you could make it," Martin Bishop said, striding into the room at 10 a.m. on the dot. Martin was the opposite of his corporate surroundings. He was a tall, lean man in his late 60s with a shock of white hair and a face that looked carved from granite. He wore a simple, well-worn tweed jacket over a flannel shirt. He looked more like a rancher than a billionaire, and it was a deliberate, disarming choice. "Martin, a pleasure," Gregory said, shaking his hand, his grip firm. "A shame to meet under such abrupt circumstances. I hope everything is all right." "Everything is clarifying, Gregory," Martin said, his voice mild. He took his seat at the head of the table. "I'm sure you all know Mr. and Mrs. Davenport. Mr. Davenport is the CEO of Davenport Capital, and he has an interest in the future of the Bishop Group." Gregory smiled, a thin, controlled expression. "We believe in your brand, Martin. We just think it needs a firmer hand, a more modern approach." "Ah, yes, a firmer hand, I see," Martin said. He gestured to the VPs. "My senior team. You know, Gregory, we're a family company. We pride ourselves on transparency, which is why I've asked you here." Genevieve shifted in her seat, bored. "Martin, if this is just a standard meet and greet—" "It's not," Martin said, his voice suddenly losing its folksy charm. It became the voice that had built an empire, cold, flat, and absolute. "We're here to discuss an incident, a significant operational failure at our New York flagship last night." Mr. Shaw went from grey to translucent. He looked like he was going to be sick. Gregory's eyes flickered with interest. "Oh, a problem?" "Indeed. A service incident at the Carlyle involving a high-value wine and an assault on one of our patrons." Genevieve sat up, her eyes bright with malice. "Assault? Is that what she's calling it?" "Martin, your waitress threw a bottle of wine on me. It was unconscionable. Your manager, Mr. Shaw, handled it adequately. He fired her on the spot. Though frankly, I think you should be suing her for damages." Gregory shot her a look. "Stick to the plan." "Yes," Martin said, his gaze settling on Mr. Shaw. "Mr. Shaw, why don't you walk us through the adequate handling of the situation?" Mr. Shaw swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Sir, Mr. Bishop, it was a terrible event. The waitress, Anna Bishop. She was clumsy. She ruined Mrs. Davenport's jacket," Martin finished for him. "And so you fired her, in the middle of the dining room, without investigation, without asking for her side of the story. Is that correct?" Mrs. Davenport demanded it, sir. She's a high-priority guest. I was managing the situation." "You were managing," Martin repeated, his voice dangerously soft. "And you, Mrs. Davenport, you felt the proper response to a spill was to scream, demean, and then throw a glass of ice water on a member of my staff?" Genevieve tossed her hair. "That girl was trash. She got what she deserved. We are your customers, Martin. The customer is always right." "Is that so?" Martin said. He leaned forward. "Gregory, your mystery shopper reports, the ones you've been anonymously sending my board for the past 3 months, the ones detailing staff incompetence, slow service, and lax management. I found them very illuminating, especially the ones that seemed to correspond perfectly with your wife's visits." Gregory's smile faltered. The shark had just realized the water was a bit colder than he thought. "I don't know what you're talking about, Martin. We are simply concerned patrons." "Are you?" Martin leaned back. "I'm an old man, Gregory, but I'm not a stupid one. You've been manufacturing a crisis, trying to devalue my company so you could buy it for pennies on the dollar. Last night was the grand finale, wasn't it? A big, public, dramatic scene to prove the flagship is in chaos, and my manager, Mr. Shaw here, he fell right into your trap." "This is an outrage," Gregory blustered, rising from his chair. "These are baseless accusations. We're leaving." "Oh, I don't think you are," Martin said. "You see, we're still missing one key person. This meeting can't really begin without her." "Her?" Genevieve scoffed. "Who? That pathetic little waitress? Are you going to bring her in here to cry and beg for her job back?" "No," Martin said, a small, sad smile touching his lips. "I'm not. But she is coming." The main boardroom doors opened. "Apologies for my lateness, everyone," Anna Bishop said, her voice clear and ringing. She was unrecognizable. The mousy bun was gone, replaced by a sleek, professional chignon. The ill-fitting polyester uniform was gone, replaced by a dark, impeccably tailored Tom Ford pantsuit. The sensible non-slip shoes were gone, replaced by the quiet, deadly click-click-click of Manolo Blahnik heels on the marble floor. She was no longer Anna the waitress. She was Anna Bishop, Cornell graduate, and heir to the Bishop Hotel Group. She walked to the head of the table and stood next to her father. Mr. Shaw's jaw dropped, a small, strangled sound escaping his throat. Gregory Davenport's face turned to stone. But it was Genevieve who had the most profound reaction. Her face, flushed with victory, drained of all color. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. She looked from Anna, in her power suit, to Martin, and back to Anna. "Good morning," Anna said, her voice the same temperature as the ice water Genevieve had thrown at her. "My name is Anna Bishop. I'm the new Vice President of Operational Integrity for this company. And you, Mrs. Davenport? You and I have a lot to talk about." The silence in the boardroom was no longer just quiet. It was a vacuum, sucking all the air and arrogance out of the Davenport side of the table. Mr. Shaw looked like he was actively having a heart attack, his hand clutching his chest. Anna Bishop stood next to her father, radiating an authority that was entirely her own. She was not the trembling, humiliated girl from last night. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who had seen the rot in her own company's basement and was now here to fumigate the penthouse. "Please," Anna said, her voice a calm, level command. "Sit down, Mr. Davenport. You too, Genevieve. We're not finished." Numbly, Gregory and Genevieve sank back into their plush leather chairs. Genevieve's eyes were locked on Anna, her mind visibly failing to process the transformation. You're his," she stammered, pointing a trembling, red-nailed finger at Martin. "He's my father," Anna stated simply, as if discussing the weather. "And this is my company, which means, as of last night, you are no longer a guest. You are a problem." Anna picked up a small remote and clicked it. The glass wall overlooking Central Park frosted over, becoming an enormous projection screen. The VPs, who had been watching this drama with rapt attention, now straightened, recognizing the shift. The family drama was over. The business execution was beginning. "For the past 6 months," Anna began, pacing slowly, her heels marking a steady, unnerving rhythm, "I have been conducting a deep dive, ground-level audit of our flagship properties. I have been a maid, a concierge, a busboy, and most recently, a waitress at the Carlyle." She clicked the remote. The screen lit up with a high-definition, color-corrected image. It was security footage from the dining room. "This is footage from camera 4A, Anna narrated, her voice devoid of emotion. "Time-stamped at 8:52 p.m. Please watch closely." The VPs leaned in. The Davenports recoiled. The footage showed Anna approaching the table. It clearly showed Genevieve turning, her arm extended, her Birkin bag swinging out and connecting first. It was undeniable. Anna didn't spill the wine. She was struck. "As you can see," Anna continued, "the contact was initiated by Mrs. Davenport. The resulting spill was a direct consequence of her action, not my incompetence." She clicked again. The screen split into 4 quadrants, showing different angles. One was a close-up on Genevieve's face. "And here," Anna said, "at 8:53 p.m. is the moment Mrs. Davenport reacts." They watched, in horrifying, crystal-clear slow motion, as Genevieve's face twisted from boredom into a mask of theatrical rage. They watched her scream. They watched her stand and knock over her own chair. "A brilliant performance," Anna noted dryly. "Worthy of an Oscar, especially given that, at this distance, the stain was barely visible." She clicked again. The screen now showed the ice water, the flick of Genevieve's wrist, the splash, Anna's gasp. A low, angry murmur went through the VPs. They were hoteliers, professionals who prided themselves on service and dignity. This was barbaric. "And this," Anna said, her voice hardening, "is the moment my manager, Mr. Shaw, adequately handled the situation." The footage now focused on Shaw, wringing his hands, his back to Anna, his body angled protectively toward the high-priority guest. They heard the audio, crisp and clear from the room's ambient microphones. "You're fired, Bishop. Get out." Anna clicked the remote, and the screen went black. The room was plunged back into silence, broken only by Mr. Shaw's labored, wheezing breaths. "Mr. Shaw," Anna said, turning her full attention to the man at the end of the table, "in your 6 years as manager, your staff turnover rate has been 45% higher than any other property in our portfolio. You have received more guest complaints about staff attitude and more staff complaints about guest harassment than our London, Paris, and Dubai properties combined. We thought it was the stress of the New York market. We thought you were just ineffective." She walked toward him, each click of her heels a nail in his coffin. "But now I see it's not a matter of incompetence, Mr. Shaw. It's a matter of active malfeasance. You don't manage your staff. You sacrifice them. You cultivate an environment of fear. You let people like her," she jerked her chin at Genevieve, "abuse your employees, and then you punish the victim." I, Shaw stammered, wiping his brow. "But the real question," Anna said, turning to Gregory, "is why? Why was Mr. Shaw so quick to believe the worst of his own team? Why was he so terrified of the Davenports?" She clicked the remote one last time. The screen lit up not with a video, but with a spreadsheet, a series of bank transfers. "These," Anna said, "are from an offshore account linked to Davenport Capital, and these are deposits into a private account in the Cayman Islands, an account belonging to Mr. Harold Shaw." The room gasped. "Over the past 3 months," Anna continued, "Mr. Shaw has received over 150,000. Consulting fees, the transfers are labelled. Fees paid just after a mystery shopper report was filed. Fees paid for... What exactly, Mr. Shaw? For falsifying service incidents? For looking the other way when Mrs. Davenport accidentally found a hair in her soup? For helping Mr. Davenport build his case that this company is falling apart?" Mr. Shaw made a strangled sound and slumped forward, his head hitting the granite table with a dull, sickening thud. He had fainted. "Pathetic," Gregory Davenport snarled, his mask of civility finally gone. He was on his feet now, his face purple with rage. "This is a circus. You have no proof. This is slander." "It's not slander," Martin Bishop said, speaking for the first time since his daughter had taken the floor. "It's evidence. We've already forwarded it to the district attorney's office. It's called conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, Gregory." Gregory's face went white. He looked at his wife, at the fainted manager, at the stone-faced VPs. He was trapped. But the real shock was yet to come. "Conspiracy? Fraud?" Gregory Davenport spat the words, trying to regain his footing. He was a brawler, and he was being cornered. "That's absurd. This is a simple business dispute. You're just angry, Martin, because I found the weakness in your organization. That idiot," he kicked Shaw's chair, "was just an opportunist. I have no connection to him. And as for my wife, she's a passionate woman. She's expressive." "She is, isn't she?" Anna said, her voice dangerously quiet. "She was so expressive last night, I almost missed the most important detail." "And what's that, little girl?" Genevieve hissed, her bravado returning now that her husband was fighting back. "That you're a terrible waitress?" "No," Anna said. "That you're a terrible liar." The boardroom doors opened again. This time it wasn't a VP or a fainted manager. It was a woman in a severe, dark grey suit, carrying a leather briefcase. She looked to be in her late 50s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and an aura of absolute, non-negotiable authority. "Ah, Miss Kent," Martin said, standing. "Thank you for joining us." Gregory Davenport's blood ran cold. He knew that name. "Miss Kent? Margaret Kent? The state prosecutor?" "Former," Miss Kent corrected him, her voice like dry ice. "I'm in private practice now, and I am not here for Mr. Bishop." She walked past Martin, past Anna, and stood directly in front of Gregory and Genevieve. She opened her briefcase and laid out a stack of documents. "Mr. Davenport," Miss Kent began, "I am here today representing a client who has a vested interest in your business activities. Specifically, your attempts to devalue and acquire the Bishop Hotel Group. I don't know what you're—" "Shut up, Gregory," Miss Kent said. And he did. "My client has been monitoring your activities for some time. We were, in fact, preparing our own case when Ms. Bishop's incident accelerated the timeline." She turned her sharp gaze on Genevieve. Genevieve, who had faced down counts and duchesses, visibly shrank in her chair. "This is where it gets confusing," Ms. Kent said, turning to the VPs as if they were a jury. "You see, we've all been operating under a misapprehension. We've been referring to this woman," she pointed at Genevieve, "as Mrs. Davenport, the billionaire's wife. But she isn't." A collective audible "What?" filled the room. Gregory's face was no longer white. It was ashen. "Margaret, don't." "The real Mrs. Davenport," Ms. Kent continued, "the real Evelyn Davenport, whose family money, I might add, was the entire foundation for Davenport Capital, is currently a resident at the Silver Springs Long-Term Care Facility in upstate New York. She has been for 3 years suffering from a severe neurological condition. She is non-verbal. She is, for all intents and purposes, incapacitated." Martin Bishop's face tightened. He and Anna exchanged a look. This was new. This was darker than they could have imagined. "Gregory Davenport," Ms. Kent said, her voice dropping, "holds her power of attorney, a power he has used to systematically liquidate her personal assets, assets not tied to their shared accounts, to fund his failing business ventures, and to fund her." She turned back to Genevieve. "This," she said, tapping a document, "is Genevieve Holt. She was Mr. Davenport's personal assistant. For the past 2 years, she has been, essentially, an actress, playing the role of Mrs. Davenport at public functions, on social media, and in corporate sabotage operations." The room was spinning. The VPs looked ill. Anna felt a cold pit in her stomach. The humiliation, the cruelty. It hadn't even been real. It was a paid performance. "Genevieve Holt," Ms. Kent said, "was paid a handsome bonus for her role. In exchange, she lived a life of luxury, all on Evelyn Davenport's dime. The couture jacket from last night, bought with an account in Evelyn's name. The Birkin bag, same. The diamonds, all of them. He promised me," Genevieve whispered, her face crumbling. The mask was gone. Underneath was not malice, but a desperate, greedy panic. "He promised he'd marry me, after the deal was done. He said she didn't matter." "She didn't?" Gregory roared, lunging at Genevieve. "You idiot! You were a tool! You were the help! You believed me?" 2 security guards, who had been standing by the door, moved in and flanked Gregory, their hands on his arms. "But that's not the final twist," Ms. Kent said, holding up a hand. "You see, Gregory, you made one fatal mistake. You underestimated everyone. You underestimated Martin Bishop's loyalty to his company. You underestimated his daughter's resolve. And you underestimated your wife's legal team." "Legal team?" Gregory scoffed. "She's a vegetable." "She was," Ms. Kent said, a grim, triumphant smile touching her lips. "3 months ago, my client, Evelyn Davenport, had a breakthrough, a new experimental treatment. She's not non-verbal anymore, Gregory. She's furious. She's been watching you. She's been listening. And she's been documenting." Ms. Kent tapped a final, thick document. "This, Mr. Davenport, is a fully executed, contested divorce filing, citing dissipation of marital assets and fraud. This," she held up another, "is a federal criminal complaint for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. And this," she held up a third, "is a warrant for your arrest, and for yours, Miss Holt, as a co-conspirator." The room was absolutely stone-cold silent. This wasn't just corporate raiding. This was a new, profound level of human depravity. Gregory Davenport looked at the papers. He looked at the security guards. He looked at Ms. Kent, and then his eyes found Anna. He didn't look sorry. He didn't look ashamed. He looked furious that a waitress had been the one to pull the pin. "You," he seethed at Anna. "You did this. You, with your weak hands." Anna looked at him, at the man who had been a titan just 10 minutes ago, now a cornered, pathetic animal. She held up her hands, steady and strong. "My hands are just fine, Mr. Davenport," Anna said. "It's my company, and you are no longer welcome in it." The security guards moved, cuffing Gregory. As they pulled him from the chair, Miss Kent leaned in and plucked the $50,000 Patek Philippe watch from his wrist. "This will be returned to its rightful owner," she said coolly. Genevieve Holt didn't fight. She just sat there, the diamonds on her neck suddenly looking as fake and cold as she was, and began to sob. Not for Evelyn, or for Anna, but for the life she had just lost. "It really was," Anna murmured to her father, as the billionaire's wife was led away in handcuffs. A lovely jacket. The boardroom doors closed, sealing off the wreckage of the Davenports' lives. The echo of Genevieve Holt's desperate, broken sobs seemed to cling to the air, a phantom sound in the suddenly vast, sterile silence. The regional vice presidents sat frozen, their briefing folders forgotten. They had come for a meeting on quarterly projections, and had instead witnessed a palace coup, a criminal takedown, and the most brutal piece of corporate theatre they would ever see. Mr. Shaw, mercifully, was still unconscious, his rhythmic, wheezing breaths the only sound. Martin Bishop let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for 6 months. He ran a hand over his face, looking not like a CEO, but like a father who had just watched his daughter walk through fire. He looked at Anna. She stood steady, but the adrenaline was visibly leaving her, revealing the bone-deep exhaustion beneath. The hand that had held the remote was now pressed flat on the granite table, as if to keep herself upright. "Well," Martin finally said, his voice rough. "That was more than I anticipated." He gave her a small, shaky smile. "Operational integrity, eh? You certainly integrated." Anna managed a faint smile in return, the first genuine one of the day. "It seems we had more than one rot to clear out, Dad." "Indeed." Martin's expression firmed. He was the CEO again. He turned to his stunned team. "All right, people. You've seen the worst of us. A weakness in management, a culture of fear, a failure to protect our own. You've seen what happens when we let the customer is always right become the customer is always a tyrant." He gestured to Anna, his voice swelling with a pride that was almost painful. "Now, you get to see the best of us. This is my daughter, Anna Bishop. As of this moment, she is the acting executive vice president of all North American operations. Her first directive is to conduct a top-to-bottom review of every flagship, starting, obviously, with New York. She has my full, unequivocal authority, and she will have yours." The VPs, who had just watched this 20-something woman calmly and methodically dismantle 2 corporate sharks and a corrupt manager, nodded with a vigorous, almost frantic, newfound respect. There were no whispers of nepotism. Anna hadn't just been given a seat at the table, she had built the damn table, and then she'd flipped it. "Thank you, Dad," Anna said. She turned to the VPs, her voice quiet, but carrying the weight of her new authority. "Gentlemen, ladies, my first order of business. I want a full, anonymous, third-party audit of all employee guest complaints for the last 5 years. I don't just want to know what was complained about. I want to know who complained, how often, and what the resolution was. I want to find the patterns. I want to know every time a member of our staff was in the wrong against a high-revenue guest. We're not just looking for bad guests, we're looking for bad policy. We're looking for every place our system chose money over people. That ends today." She then turned her gaze to the still unconscious Mr. Shaw. Her face held no malice, only a kind of weary finality. "And get him an ambulance," she said. "And his severance. He's fired, obviously. But he is still our problem until he is off the premises. Send the bill for his medical care to him, and the bill for his corporate treachery to Mr. Davenport's legal team. They'll be hearing from us." An hour later, Anna Bishop walked back into the Carlyle. The shift in atmosphere was jarring. She had left the 50th floor boardroom, a sterile sky citadel of glass and steel, and now she was back on the ground in the warm, wood-paneled, gardenia-scented heart of the flagship. She had taken the time to change, not into her power suit, but into a simple, severe black dress, an interim manager's uniform. Practical, professional, a step above the staff, but not a world apart. She didn't walk through the grand lobby. She used the staff entrance in the back, keying in the code she knew by heart, the scent of industrial-strength cleaner and baking bread, welcoming her like an old, complicated friend. She bypassed the manager's office. Her office now, she realized with a jolt, and went straight to the main dining room. It was the quiet lull between lunch prep and dinner service. And there, as she knew he would be, was Leo. He stood at the service station, his back to her, polishing the same set of silverware. But his movements, usually so precise, were listless, defeated. He looked like a man who had seen something awful and been forced to swallow it. "Leo," she said softly. He spun around, his face a mask of exhaustion and panic. The panic intensified when he saw her. "Anna, what are you doing here? You can't be here. If Shaw sees you, my God, after last night, he'll call security. He threatened me. He said if I even spoke to you." "Mr. Shaw is no longer with the company, Leo," Anna said, her voice gentle. Leo blinked, the words not computing. "What? Did he get fired? Because of me? Because I tried to step in?" "Anna, I'm so sorry. I should have—" "Leo," Anna interrupted, putting a hand on his arm. His catering jacket sleeve was worn thin. "He got fired because he was a coward and a thief, and he got fired because of me, but not in the way you think." She took a deep breath. This was, in many ways, harder than the boardroom. "Leo, I wasn't entirely honest with you, or with anyone," she told him. Not the whole sordid tale of the Davenports and the fake wife, but the simple essential truth. "My name is Anna Bishop. Martin Bishop is my father. I've been working here for the last 6 months to see things from the inside, to see what was real." Leo stared at her, his mind visibly trying to reconcile the image of his co-worker, the one who had cried in the break room last week over a rude customer, the one who always had a blister on her heel, the one who shared her tips fairly, with the name Bishop, the name on the building, the name on his paycheck. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at her face, searching for the lie, and found none. And then he did the most unexpected thing. He started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was a deep, sharp, slightly hysterical laugh of a man who has just seen the Matrix crack open. You're Anna Bishop?" he choked out, leaning against the station. The heiress. And you. You were helping me clean the gunk out of the cappuccino machine at 2 a.m. last night, because I was about to lose my mind? It was clogged, Anna smiled, the tension finally breaking, and you were using the wrong brush. The laugh turned real. Then, a genuine gust of relieved, absurd, wonderful laughter. "My God," Leo said, shaking his head. "My God. So, last night, all of that." "Last night," Anna said, her smile fading, her new authority settling on her, "was the end of an old way of doing things, and the beginning of a new one. Leo, I am the new interim general manager for the Carlyle, and I need a head of service. Not just a manager, but a leader. Someone who actually believes in service, and who has the courage to stand up for his team, even when it costs him." She held his gaze. "I saw you try to stand up for me last night, Leo. That was the weakness Mr. Davenport was talking about. He was wrong. It was the only real strength in that room. And it's what I'm going to build this hotel's new reputation on." She held out her hand. "Leo, I'm promoting you, effective immediately. You're the new dining room manager, not shift lead, manager, double the salary, full benefits package for your family, retroactive to the 1st of the month. If you'll have me, I'd like to be your partner in fixing this place." Leo looked at her outstretched hand. He looked at the calluses on her palm, still there from her time in the laundry. He saw no pity, no charity. He saw a boss. He grasped her hand, his grip firm. "Yes, Miss Bishop," he said, his voice thick. Yes, thank you. What's our first move?" Anna's face hardened with the same steely resolve she'd had in the boardroom. "First," she said, "we're taking the 98 Petrus off the menu. I don't care how much money it makes. We are a hotel, not a stage for sociopaths to perform their cruelty. We will not profit from that kind of ego." "And second?" "Second," Anna said, looking out at the beautiful empty dining room, "we're going to call an all-staff meeting. For tonight, and for the first time in a long time, we are going to listen." The shockwave that followed wasn't a scandal. It was a revolution. Anna's story, the waitress who became the boss, the heiress who had been humbled and then risen, became a legend within the company. She instituted the Bishop Protocol, a new set of rules that empowered staff to immediately eject any guest, regardless of their status, for verbal or physical abuse, all with the full, ironclad backing of management. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. It was on plain, elegant stationery from a state-of-the-art neurological facility, one Anna had arranged anonymous funding for. The real Evelyn Davenport, recovering and beginning her new life, had written a single, handwritten note. "You didn't just give me my life back," it said. "You gave me justice. Thank you." Anna framed it. She put it in her new, sprawling general manager's office, right next to her first, worn-out, sensible black waitress shoe, a reminder of where she'd been and a promise of where she was going. They thought she was nothing, a waitress, a cog in the machine, easily broken, easily replaced, The billionaire's wife tried to wipe her disgusting shoes on Anna, but she forgot one crucial detail. Sometimes the person cleaning the floor is the one who owns the building. The moment Anna's identity was revealed was shocking, but the real twist was the web of lies, fraud, and betrayal she uncovered. Genevieve and Gregory Davenport learned the hard way that you should never underestimate the person pouring your wine. What do you think was the most shocking part of this story? The fake wife? The corrupt manager? Or Anna's final, perfect revenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories where the arrogant and entitled get exactly what they deserve, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to see justice served, and subscribe to the channel. We have so many more stories to tell.